We'll begin this evening's class, November 29th, Bhagavad Gita, we're starting on the 15th chapter. It's exciting because I think this will be the first time that I've gone through all 18 chapters, verse by verse. I've given a lot of lectures on Bhagavad Gita, but this is the first time. So I'm very happy, and happy that you all can join me. So let's begin our Gita session with the invocation mantras, showing our respect for Guru.
Excuse me, Lakshmi?
Yeah.
Can you turn up the volume a little bit?
Is that any better?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuro Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Hitati Swapodantikam Hitati Swapodantikam Namao Vishnu Pataya Vishnu Pestaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Charine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Pastutyadishotarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Okay, chapter 15 is entitled The Yoga of the Supreme Person. Now, wouldn't you like to know what is the yoga of the Supreme Person? So we shall find out reading this chapter. Chapter 14 described the modes of nature: Sattva gun, Rajagun, Tamagun, those forces that simultaneously restrict and control a soul within his field of activities. Now, Krishna, using an allegory of an ashvata, a banyan tree, describes the entire material world with its varieties of fields of activities situated on higher and lower branches of that tree. So, those are the first several verses where Krishna is talking allegorically about this material world, compared using the allegory of the banyan tree. Only this banyan tree, roots are growing up and the branches are growing down. And Prabhupada asks a very poignant question. He says, do you have the experience of that in this world, where the banyan tree's roots are growing up and its branches are growing down? And if you think about that for a second, more than likely your answer will be, no, I don't have that experience. But then Prabhupada explains, yes, you do. He said, if you're standing on one side of a lake and there's a banyan tree growing on the other side of the lake, its reflection, the banyan tree, the real banyan tree, has a reflection whose branches are growing down and whose roots are on the top. So that is the meaning of the allegory that we're going to study here. I just wanted to pull up, for those of you who may not be familiar with the word allegory, it's symbolic. It's a symbol to make an abstract or a complex concept relatable. So the expression by means of symbolic fictional figures and actions of truths or generalizations about human existence. So I just wanted to make sure you were clear what an allegory is. Okay, so we'll read verse 1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas." So the banyan tree is the banyan tree of the material world, and it's upside down. Roots up, branches down, because it only reflects reality. So this material world is topsy-turvy because it is a reflection of our reality, which is a spiritual reality. In other words, there is a world that exists with the roots growing in the proper direction down and the branches going up. That is the spiritual world. And that is the world of Satchit Ananda Vigraha. Satchit Ananda Vigraha means eternity, knowledge, and bliss. And Vigraha means form. So the embodiment of Satchit Ananda Vigraha is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, as described in Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere in the Vedic literatures. And also, we are Satchit Ananda Vigraha. We are parts and parcels of that Supreme Personality, who also have form, an eternal form that is in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead through love, devotion, and a practical manifestation of love and devotion is service. So that is our reality. The material world is called a reflection of that reality because we do have form in this material world. We are embodied in a man's body, a woman's body, a child's body, an old person's body, and all the other various species, embodied species. So there is form, but we can readily agree that our form is temporary. In other words, this male 74-year-old Lakshmi Nrsimha is not my eternal form. Thank God. It is a place that I am residing in temporarily. Me, the soul, which is the eternal reality, is residing in this temporary reality of the body, in the temporary reality of this material world. For what purpose? Well, the purpose is so that I can get out of my conditioned state. And symptomatic of the conditioned state is the fact that I think I'm this body. When we think we're the body and we act according to the dictates, solely and wholly according to the dictates of the body, its senses, the mind, then that means we're under illusion. The illusion that this is all that is. This is my reality. And this is all that is. So Bhagavad Gita, in Krishna's infinite wisdom, is giving us an opportunity to understand the distinction, to see both the reflection, the material world, and the reality. So right now it's very difficult for us to see reality because of our conditioned state. But through the process of bhakti yoga, wherein we use everything that we have, albeit in temporary form, we use it in service to the Supreme, and eventually we develop a vision or a perspective of the reality of our existence as soul in relationship to the Supreme. Can you tell Gally to? So, as the branches of a real tree, real banyan tree, produce offshoots that grow down into roots and further trunks, this reflected tree similarly has endlessly complicated, intertwined trunks, roots, and branches. One can picture neither its beginning nor its end. A soul situated within the complexities of this incomprehensible tree remains trapped. So it means if we only see the complexity of the material world, then that means we're in illusion and we're trapped by that situation. So we have to become free from that illusion, and we have to go deeper into the true nature of the self through our yoga practice, our bhakti yoga practice. All existence beyond the tree is forgotten, and we're fully enamored with the tastes of the fruits of the tree and the fruits and berries of the tree. So that means that we act in this material world, and the fruits of our actions become the motivational or driving force of our actions. We're acting to gain something, to gain some reward, and to experience happiness through that reward, through those fruits. And that becomes the cycle. That becomes karma bandhana. Jagnartat karma Jagnartat. I forget the verse right now. Can't remember the verse. But in any case, it means that we act, and our actions either become binding to this world or they become liberating. So as long as we're devoid of performing action, which Krishna identifies in the Bhagavad Gita as yajna, or sacrifice. Sacrifice is a necessity. I was just listening to a lecture by Srila Prabhupada where he describes that, if there is proper action means sacrifice, gratitude, appreciation, respect for that which we are given. For instance, every morning that we have the good fortune to wake up to, the sun is shining, the earth is producing. Like we have a tendency to offer flowers every day to our deities, and every day I go out there and there's new blossoms. Sometimes I'm thinking, I'm picking all the blossoms. There's not going to be anything to offer tomorrow to Krishna. And then I go out and new blossoms. So every day is a day of miracle, is a day of gratitude that the sun is shining, I'm breathing, the air, the earth, the water, all of these things that are given to us. And that's why Krishna says in the Gita, particularly 3rd chapter and 3rd, 4th, 5th chapter, he talks a lot about performance of sacrifice to please the Supreme. And that is the yoga of the Supreme Person, that we are offering our actions, our words, and our deeds as an offering. And Jagnat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana. So they action as an offering to the Supreme become liberating. Mukti. As Krishna is called Mukunda, Mukunda means the giver of liberation, and Mukti means liberation. So we offer our activities and everything that we do. We're a father, we're a mother, we're a son, we're a daughter, we're a citizen. Whatever our roles are, we see that in relationship to our service. Motherhood, fatherhood, childhood, all of these things we see in relationship to the Supreme as an offering of gratitude. Ishabasyamidam sarvam yang yat kincha yat jagat tam jena takjena unjitaha magritha kashaswid dhanam. I have to practice my Sanskrit more. I'm starting to forget it. And that means if we know everything to be Ishwar, the property of the Supreme, then that is the rightful situation. Otherwise, if we don't, then we become a thief. We're seen as a thief in the eyes of the Lord, because he's giving us so much and there's no gratitude, there's no appreciation. Imagine if you have someone under your care and every day you are giving to that person. Every day you're giving your heart, you're giving your love, you're giving whatever you can give, and there's absolutely no appreciation. Now, of course, pure love is selfless. We don't do it to get recognition or gratitude or appreciation, but it's nice. It's nice when someone appreciates what you are doing. So the practical way that we can demonstrate our appreciation on a regular basis is through sacrifice, meaning offering our food to Krishna, offering our actions, the results of our actions to Krishna, offering our children to Krishna, and that means by teaching them about Krishna, teaching them how to chant, teaching them how to hear Katha, Krishna Katha, teaching them about the value of association, teaching them about respect and honor, teaching them, all the spiritually rich culture of Krishna consciousness, of Bhakti Yoga. And that is how we are offering, to give the training there. That's really a practical demonstration of love that a parent will have for a child, because it has to extend beyond just the body, because the body is temporary and the soul is eternal. So if you train your child in the culture of spirituality through the process of Bhakti Yoga, you are giving the child eternal benefit. So that's a yajna. That's a sacrifice. Sometimes it's not easy, but we can do it. When we do it, and we see that the child develops an affinity for chanting and dancing, and has respect or appreciates Vaishnavas and Vaishnava association, it is such a rewarding experience. There's nothing better than that. So everything becomes our offering, our sacrifice. And therefore, Krishna becomes pleased when you water. In the Bhagavatam, it says, when you water the root of the tree, all parts of the tree flourish as a result. You don't have to water each leaf and each twig and each branch. By watering, making sure there's ample amount of water, depending on what kind of plant it is, the proper amount of water and the proper amount of sunlight, and then that tree will benefit the entirety. So by watering the root of existence, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the root of all existence, then what we have is an environment that is surcharged with spirituality, and an environment which flourishes as a result. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of the exalted spiritual masters in our lineage, explains that the word Ashvata can also be understood. It's one of the words here. Shva in Ashvata means tomorrow. Ashra can thus mean not tomorrow. Sta means stay, and it becomes grammatically modified here to mean ta. Thus, Ashvatam Tama can be taken as that which will not exist tomorrow. So the material world is Ashvatam, which means its existence has a shelf life, both for those that are practicing Bhakti Yoga and those that are not practicing. It is a universal principle that is applicable to everyone. So it won't exist tomorrow. It has its shelf life. And therefore, we realize that our action, everything that we do is important, has a importance and a priority, that what we do and how we do it and when we do it and where we do it with a mindfulness of Krishna. It's like, for instance, our home. Our home is more than just the building where our family resides. Our home is our temple. Our home is not our home. Our home is Krishna's. And we are the caretakers of Krishna's temple, so to speak. We are the pujaris. We're the caretaker of Krishna's temple. So everything we see in that regard. Text 2. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. So that's why we were discussing in great length, chapter 14, the three modes of material nature, because the three modes of material nature activate everything that's going on in the material world. All the interactions, etc., are propelled or motivated by the three modes of material nature. The twigs on this tree, this reflection of reality, this material world, or the allegory being used here in the Gita, the banyan tree with its roots up and its branches down. The twigs are the objects of the senses, that which we see, that which we hear, that which we touch and smell and taste. Those objects of our sensory perception, those are considered the twigs of this allegorical banyan tree of the material world. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. Now, depending upon which branch a living entity is located, he will possess a certain material body and a specific type of senses. And according to the combination of modes of material nature that influences that part of the tree. So where we're situated, our field of activity, if you remember in the 13th chapter, we're talking about Kshetra and Kshetragya, the field and the knower of the field. So that field, that specific area, location on this allegorical tree, the material world, and what modes of material nature are influencing us, that dictates what type of psychophysical nature that we have. The modes of material nature affect our psyche, our mind and mindset, and our inclinations. Sattvagun, goodness, illumination, philosophy, happiness, seeing things in proper perspective. These are all the results of Sattvagun's influence. Rajagun, the passion or creativity or action that's there, that's propelling us to action, and particularly Rajagun in its purest sense, action for self-aggrandizement or self-enjoyment. When me is the motivating force, is the object to please me. I am this, that's my identity, and this is mine. So that's Rajagun. And Tamagun means the inability to understand things as they are. We are just not able to understand what is the purpose of life. And that's really a very important concept. Understanding the purpose of life is really why we are here in this world, because we've forgotten the purpose of life. So we have to understand there's 5 questions that a person who is utilizing their human form of life, there's 5 questions that we should be asking ourselves. And these 5 questions, our life, the point of our existence, should be to answer these questions. The first question, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his discussion with Sanatana Goswami, said that the asking of this question is actually proof that we are in human form of consciousness. In other words, if we are not asking this question, it indicates we are not in human form of consciousness. Human form of consciousness is meant to ask this question and to find its answer. And that question is, who am I? We try to understand why we are here. So who am I? Am I this form that I can see in the mirror, this withering form? Or am I something beyond that? Pure consciousness, which is emanating from the soul, which is situated in the heart region and is providing our entire body with consciousness. The second question that's asked, once we ask, who am I, is where have I come from? Now, most people will, if you ask, they'll say, I came from my mother's womb. So then the follow-up question is, and prior to that? Now, most people who are not seekers, not looking for answers, they'll say, well, there was nothing prior to that. And that is indication of the presence of tamagun, the inability to see that our nature is eternal. Dehinosmin yata dehe kamonam jovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. That verse in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, Krishna is saying that just as there is a continuing metamorphosis or change of body, and we are conscious of that change of body. We were conscious when we were babies, and we were conscious when we were children, conscious when we were teens, conscious as young adults, conscious as middle-aged personalities, conscious in our old age. We are conscious that that's going through, we have gone through these changes. But the perceptive individual, the questioning individual, the seeking individual realize there is something which is providing consciousness of those changes. And in Gita, in that 2nd chapter, in those series of verses, Krishna is telling us that it's the soul which emanates consciousness and is perceiving all of those changes. So the second question of where did I come from is meant to be looked at in the perspective of my eternal existence. Where did I originally come from? It's not that it's asking you to be the seer of your previous lives, although, some people do have that ability, but most of us do not. So where have I come from? That is a question that the answer lies in the realization of our eternality. And then the third question that we should be asking is, where am I going? Where did I come from? Where am I heading? And again, they're tied in, because if the answer is I'm an eternal being, so that very word, that very adjective of being, eternal, I'm a being, I exist, I be eternally. If that will cause us to look into where did I come from, but also in pursuant of that logic, where am I going? In other words, eternal means always have been and never will cease to be. So what's going to happen at the time of death? And Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he's so succinct in his answers to those questions. And in the 8th chapter, Krishna tells us what you are thinking of at the time of death that will propel you to your next destination. So that's, a real directive there. Because I don't know if any of you practice this, but I certainly practice. I try to take inventory on a daily basis of what I'm thinking of it during the course of my day. And it's a really good exercise, especially if you're a bhakti yoga practitioner. if you take inventory of what you've been thinking of during the course of the day. Did you ever notice when you are thinking of or doing something, which means you're also thinking of something intensely during the course of the day, quite often you'll dream in that regard. Your dream will have some relationship to the intensity of the day. For instance, my son and I went to summer camp, Camp Spark at the Gita Nagari farm, which was a wonderful camp where children, I think there were about 50 children from 8 or 10 different states. They all came together, and it was a fun time, and it was also a very Krishna conscious time for the kids. Every morning they would go see Radha Damodar and hear Bhagavatam class, etc., etc. And then during the course of the day, they did fun activities, constructive activities, educational activities, and in the evening, again, we'd come together. So I found myself quite often, because I was so intensely involved, I had volunteered to be a counselor there with my good friend Vishnu Gada, and I found myself in the evening time dreaming about the various things that we did to the day during that day. Like if we went swimming in a lake or hiking or something to that effect, my dreams were in relationship what we did. So where am I going is a real powerful question, and the answer comes from our sadhana, our practice of bhakti yoga. Number 4, question 4, what is my soul and what is its nature? Krishna makes that distinction in Bhagavad Gita, Prakriti and Purush, that the body is Prakriti, or made of material energy, and the soul, the real you, is Purush, spiritual energy. So what is my soul? And the 5th question we should be asking, what is God? And that begs the question, what is my relationship as soul to God? So those are the 5 questions that knowledge answers. And when I speak of knowledge, I'm talking about the knowledge which is emanating from Bhagavad Gita, sacred texts, saintly personalities, etc. So let's move on. Text 3 and 4. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So, cutting down that tree means cutting down the illusion that we are part of that reflection, because the reflection is very hard to understand and to see with all of its complexities, etc. So cutting down means cutting down the illusion that we are part of this material world. Now, when I say that, we are a part, but temporarily. That's the proper nuance, the proper perspective. That I am in this world, but not of this world. So this is what Krishna is saying in these 2 verses. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived. Are we unable, out of our ignorance, to cut down the banyan tree of this material world? No, it must be cut down. This tree is so strongly rooted that it cannot be pulled down. The axe with which we must chop at it is made of detachment and renunciation and is sharpened by knowledge and discrimination. Discrimination means intelligence. We must cut down this tree completely by full detachment, lest our minds run again towards sense gratification. So we use our mind and our senses solely and wholly to gratify it. That's what happens when we do not have or do not make the endeavor to cut down this tree with the knowledge of detachment, renunciation, and knowledge. Now, in Bhakti Yoga, some people may recoil at the notion of detachment and renunciation, but true renunciation is described by Rupa Goswami as freedom from possessiveness. Not that we're so renounced, we don't live in a house, we don't drive a car, we don't do these things. No. Real renunciation, or yukta vairagya for a bhakti yogi, means that everything that we have is the Lord's. Everything is used in his service. That's real renunciation. Not, oh, this is mine, this is my bank account, this is my car, this is my house, my body, my family, my. Oh my. That is part of the illusion. So that is not, and renunciation oftentimes is misconstrued as giving everything up. But if we give everything up, but our minds are still dwelling on it, then we haven't given it up at all. So that's not real renunciation. Real renunciation means freedom from possessiveness. And there's a story I like because I think it underscores this point. There were two monks, and they were on pilgrimage, and they were walking together, as is the case in India. When people go on pilgrimage, sometimes they walk great distances. And I think there's even in the Catholic tradition, there is a 1,000-mile long pilgrim path that goes through Spain, and I forget where it starts. It might start in France, but it's a pilgrimage. Traditionally means you walk and you go to sacred places where holy men reside or have resided, or the Lord in his various incarnations has descended, and you go there. So this pilgrimage, these two monks were on, and they came to a river. Part of their pilgrimage path was they had to go to this river and cross the river. So when they got to the river, they were standing and they were looking, is this river crossable by foot, or do I have to get a boatman to take me across, etc.? But they realized that they could wade across. It wasn't that deep. So they're just about to wade into the river to cross it. And this young, beautiful lady comes and she says, my dear sir, I need to get across the river. Can either one of you help me get across? And so the one monk says, no, that's okay. The other monk says, yes, I can help you. Jump on my back. So the young lady jumps on the monk's back, and the two of them, the three of them actually, the two monks and the lady on the one monk's back, they go across the river, and he lets her off at the other side of the river, and she's grateful for that favor, and she thanks them, and he bows respectfully, and then she goes her way, and they go their way. So for a period of time, seems like a long time, the monks aren't saying anything to each other. And then after seemingly long time, finally the one monk who refused to carry the lady says to the other monk, I can't believe you did that. And the monk who carried the lady, says, did what? And the other monk says, I can't believe you carried a young woman. You touched a young woman. We're monks. We're celibate. We're not supposed to come in contact with women. And the other monk looked at him and he said, yes. He said, I carried that woman across the river, to do her a favor. He said, but I put the woman down at the other side of the river. You've been carrying her in your mind the whole time. So you see, renunciation is not just something you do externally. It has to be an internal thing. I remember I was in a meeting with Srila Prabhupada. He was meeting with a bunch of us. I was brahmachari at the time. And Prabhupada was glorifying what it means to be a brahmachari, because everybody in the audience was either brahmachari or sannyas. So Prabhupada was saying, it's such a simple life. It's a conducive life to perform bhakti yoga. You sleep anywhere. You use your arm as your pillow, your chadar as your blanket. Life is very simple and free from complexity, so you can study and you can chant and you can easily practice. And then Prabhupada said, but you must be honest brahmachari. You must be honest renunciate. The fact, if you are carrying that woman in your mind from the river all the way and getting disturbed by those thoughts, then that's not renunciation, that's false renunciation. That's called marketa vairag. Marketa vairag means false renunciation. And so renunciation and detachment is not something that is false. Renunciation and detachment have to be genuine. And the way we genuinely become detached is by becoming attached to Krishna. We don't have to artificially detach ourselves. That if we become attached to Krishna by hearing Krishna Katha, by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and naturally we become attached to Krishna, and those other things, our attachments in the material world to sense gratification, go away naturally and normally. It's a very natural process. Bhakti yoga produces detachment, devotion to the Supreme Lord, and a desire to serve. So that's detachment. Renunciation means simultaneously by performing yajna, sacrifice for the pleasure of the Lord, we naturally become free from possessiveness. So that's detachment, renunciation. Knowledge, the axe, that sharpen the axe to cut down the material tree and all its complexities with knowledge. This knowledge, this is why regularly hearing books, sacred texts like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, that helps us to have a very powerful and pure intelligence or sense of discrimination, where we can choose. William Henry, he once said that the thing about our is it William Henry or William James? The thing is about our thoughts is we have the ability to choose what thoughts we hang on to and what thoughts we let slide by. Discrimination means you know what to choose. You make a distinction about what you're holding on to in terms of thoughts and what you're letting flow through. So many things will come to our mind. The trick is, through the process of bhakti yoga, to allow those things which are detrimental to our bhakti to flow through and go out. And those which are beneficial, that we nourish those thoughts. That's the important thing. Okay? Now, text 5. I'll try to read a few more texts here. Text 5. Those who are free from false prestige. So this is Krishna giving us what it looks like to actually become, to start chopping down that tree. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So Prabhupada, in the purport to this verse, he highlights how to do this. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride. Alexander Pope, in his essay on man, he said, "In pride, our error lies." So the first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride, because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the Lord of material nature. It is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not Lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord of material nature and the Lord of all that exists. Where one is free from delusion caused by pride, when one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. So delusion comes by this pride, by this mindset that everything is mine, this possessiveness, this attachment. And thus we become deluded by that perspective. So one has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. And we see, practically speaking, pick up the newspaper, and what do you have? One group of people thinking that they are the proprietor, and another group of people across some imaginary border are thinking that no, they are the proprietors. And therefore, when they differ, and it's amazing how that kind of notion is perpetuated through generations and generation. No, this is my land. No, this is my land. And when another attacks another land which is across an imaginary border, because they have determined, no, this is your land, is my land. It's not either of your land. Where it's a temporary stopping point. It's God's land. And we are using it, we are working it as an offering to the Supreme. So this is an important concept to wrap our mind around. Otherwise, we become bewildered by politics and ideologies. Whereas the real understanding is Bhoktaram Jagnatapasam. All sacrifice is for Krishna's pleasure. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. All places are Krishna's. Suridam Sarvabhutanam. That my best friend, that friend who has my back for an eternity, that is Krishna. That is a friend who will never disappoint you. Those three things is emphasized in the Gita. Yajgyatva shantim richtati. Then, when we can see that, Prabhupada said that's the peace formula. If you want to have peace in the world, peace in your mind, understand those 3 points. Bhoktaram jagnatapasam, all sacrifices are made to be an offering for this. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, all abodes, all lokas, all places are the supremes. Suridam Sarvabhutanam, of all living entities, he is our best friend. Those 3 points bring shanti, bring peace, peace of mind and peace to the world. Text 6, that supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So this is an indication of the spiritual world. There is no external illumination. Here we depend on, in the daytime, sunlight, and at nighttime, electricity to go surging through the filaments in our bulbs to give us light. So we are dependent on external source for light. In the spiritual world, it is self-illumined, just like the sun is self-illumined. The sun doesn't have an external source for its light. It is light. So Krishna is saying in the spiritual world, it is illumined because it is the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus, by its nature, it is light. Text 7, the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. So we'll end there. And if anyone has any question or comment, we'll begin next week with text 7, 15:7. Sid, could you make note of that for me, please? 15th chapter, text 7, we will begin next week. Thank you, sir. So if anyone has any question or comment or realizations you would like to share with everybody else, that would be great. If not, we'll conclude this evening's session of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so thank you very much, folks. You have a happy, healthy, and holy week coming up, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same station, Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. Until that time, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi.
Amazing.